Right then, it was supposed to be just another European night at Celtic Park. Champions League qualifiers under the lights, the crowd behind the team, the kind of evening where Celtic shows why this club belongs on the biggest stage. But what we got instead was a 0-0 draw that left more questions than answers. And honestly, a sense that this team is stumbling into a season that should have been built on strength, not patched together in desperation. Let's get straight into it. From the first whistle, you could tell something wasn't right. The energy was flat, the tempo was off, and Celtic looked like a team unsure of themselves. And that's not just a one-off. This has been brewing all summer. From preseason friendlies that papered over the cracks, to transfer windows that feel like they're being handled with oven mitts, the whole club seems to be drifting, and now we're seeing the consequences. Last night was the kind of performance that you could see coming. A goalless draw at home against a side we should be beating comfortably. And the worst part? It didn't even feel like a robbery. Couldn't just hang on for a draw. They earned it. They pressed smartly in the first half, disrupted Celtic's rhythm, and exposed a team that looks like it hasn't been coached to attack. And Celtic? Flat-footed, lacking ideas, and barely threatening the opposition goal. What's frustrating is that we've been here before. This is supposed to be the year we build on a strong European showing. A 1-1 draw away to Bayern Munich just 6 months ago that gave us a glimpse of what this team could be. That was supposed to be the launch pad. Instead, we've regressed. Significantly. From going toe-to-toe with European giants to struggling to create chances at home against a side with a fraction of our resources. And look, we can talk about performances all day, but we also need to look at who's making the decisions. The board. How does a club of Celtic stature, with its resources and fan base, go into a Champions League qualifier with a squad so threadbare, so lacking in depth, that we're moving players out of position just to field a functioning 11? By the end of that game, we had Benjamin Negrin, a central player, out on the right wing. Dyson Maeda, who's supposed to be a winger, was leading the line. Liam Scales, a center back, was at left back. That's 3 players not playing in their natural roles. In a Champions League qualifier, that's unacceptable. It's not a Brendan Rodgers issue. It's a recruitment issue. It's a squad planning issue. It's a leadership issue. And Brendan knows it. You could hear it in his comments after the match. He's trying to keep the focus on the players, trying not to throw anyone under the bus. But between the lines, you can hear the frustration. He doesn't control transfers. He works with what he's got. And what he's got right now is a group that's nowhere near ready for this level of competition. Let's talk about the lineup. Schmeichel in goal. Johnston, Carter-Vickers, Scales, and Tierney across the back. McGregor, Hatate, and Negrin in midfield. Forrest, Maeda, and Ida up top. On paper, it should be more than enough. But games aren't played on paper. The defense looked shaky from the get-go. The midfield couldn't link up with the attack. Out wide, we offered very little. James Forrest tried to inject some energy, but Maeda barely touched the ball, and Ida, well, he just wasn't in the game. There was no pressing. None of that high-energy Celtic style we saw flashes of in preseason. No intent, no spark. We looked like a team waiting for something to happen, not a team trying to make something happen. And credit to Kai, they made us work for every inch. Man marked us, frustrated us, broke up play. They had a disallowed goal, shots that went narrowly wide, and moments where they looked more likely to score than we did. And then there's the quality, or lack thereof, in the final third. How many over-it passes did we see? How many poor decisions in key moments? McGregor had a chance to play in Maeda and overhit it. Negrin had moments and wasted them. Forrest the same. This isn't just rust. This is a lack of sharpness, a lack of chemistry, a lack of preparation. And we're seeing it now because the warning signs were ignored. And while we're on it, let's be honest about Ida. He got taken off at halftime. That says it all. You don't do that to a striker unless he's been completely ineffective. And he has been for weeks. Look at his recent games. Chances missed, wrong decisions, no presence in the box. He's not pressing, not linking up play, not doing enough when it counts. And now we're in a position where we're relying on a forward who's miles off it, physically and mentally. In fact, it came out after the match that he was vomiting after a halftime training session with the fitness staff. That's not illness, that's conditioning. He's not match fit, and that's on the club. That's on whoever thought this squad was ready to face a high-stakes qualifier. And if you want a symbol of just how badly things are going, how about Alistair Johnston's injury? Looks like a torn hamstring. Could be out for weeks, maybe longer. Another piece of bad luck in a campaign that's starting to feel cursed, or more accurately, mismanaged. Even with all that said, Celtic should have had enough to score. Two big chances. One from Forrest early in the second half. Good save by the keeper. Fair play. The other from Maeda at the death. And if you've been watching Celtic, you knew how that was going to go. No conviction, no finish. He's been like that for weeks. Remember the cup final? The Street Mirren game? These are moments where a top forward steps up. He hasn't. Now, let's get into some stats. Over the course of the match, we saw two different center-back pairings, two left-backs, two right-backs, three right wingers, two left wingers, and three different strikers. That's almost every outfield position being changed mid-game. There's no continuity, no structure, no chance to build rhythm. How is a manager supposed to implement a system when the pieces are constantly shifting? And the bench. Remember when Celtic had guys like O'Reilly and Hatate coming off the bench? When Bernardo was in form. Now it's Simpson, Pui, Trusty Young, McCaw, Yamada, Osman, Kenny, Ingles, Bernardo, Murray, and Ralston. No disrespect, but that's not Champions League depth. That's barely Scottish Premiership depth. And it's showing. You look at the drop-off in quality from last year. We've lost Nicholas Kuhn, arguably our best European performer, and just haven't replaced him. Kyogo? Gone. No replacement. Hoda's out injured, and there's no plan to even bring in a short-term loan. Greg Taylor and Jeffrey Schlupp? Also gone. And who do we bring in to cover left back? Liam Scales, a center back. Again, that's not planning. That's just hoping it'll all be fine. And now, just to twist the knife, it looks like we're signing Misha Inala for £4.5 million after the deadline to register him for the tie. Why? Why is that happening now? Why not weeks ago? We've known about this match for months. It's stuff like this that just screams incompetence from the top. And so now we're going into the second leg away from home. Still in the tie, technically. Still a chance to get it done. But who really feels confident right now? On paper, yes, we're the better team. But football's not played on paper. It's played by teams who are fit, structured, confident, and ready. Celtic right now are none of those things. And yeah, I'll say it again, I love this club. I want to be positive. I want to believe we're going to turn it around. But the way things are going, you just wouldn't be surprised if we came up short next week. And the sad thing? It wouldn't even be a shock. It would feel familiar. Because this is what Celtic does. We don't build from strength. We stall. We hesitate. We let it slip. And all the while, the board keeps counting coins like Scrooge McDuck, ignoring the bigger picture. You can't keep squeezing the fans, selling out the stadium, and not delivering on the pitch. This model is unsustainable. And if we crash out next week, it'll be because of the decisions made in offices, not the mistakes made on the pitch. And if you thought the first leg was chaotic, let's talk about what comes next. Because somehow, despite the performance, despite the lack of intensity, despite the tactical uncertainty and the never-ending injury list, the tie is still alive. Celtic head to Almaty with everything to play for, but also with everything to lose. And that's what makes this second leg feel so massive. Not just for the season ahead, but for the club's direction entirely. We are one bad night away from dropping out of the Champions League, missing out on tens of millions of pounds, and confirming to the world, and more importantly to ourselves, that we've gone from European hopefuls to just scraping by. But it's more than that. It's also about identity. It's about whether this team still believes in the kind of football that made us feared in Europe, even if just for glimpses. Because right now, that belief looks shattered. Let's be honest, no matter how poor Kai we're expected to be, they exposed us in ways that aren't just tactical or technical. They exposed a softness, a mental fragility, a lack of organization that comes from a club running on fumes rather than purpose. And as much as we'd love to just blame individual players, and yeah, there were plenty of underwhelming performances, the truth is bigger than that. It's systemic. Just look at the way we managed the final 20 minutes. In a match we had to win, where a goal would have changed the whole complexion of the tie, we looked like a team content to see it out. The substitutions were messy. The shape was broken. The players didn't look like they were getting clear instructions from the sideline. And even if they were, they couldn't execute them. Because that's what happens when you have a squad that's been thrown together without balance or depth or direction. Take that moment when Tierney whipped in a low cross and there was literally no one attacking the ball. Not late, not arriving, just nobody there. It summed us up. A team going through the motions without that killer instinct. And it's not just about fitness or sharpness or being early in the season. It's about purpose. And we didn't play like a team with purpose. And what does that say to the fans? Because they're not stupid. They've seen this cycle play out too many times. It's August. It's a Champions League qualifier, and Celtic aren't ready. Again. And it keeps happening because the people in charge refuse to change the way they operate. They gamble. They wait. They hesitate on transfers. They act like the window ends in September when our season starts in July. And that gamble might just cost us again. You hear Brendan after the match talking about how he can only work with what he's got. That's him drawing the line. That's a manager making it clear he's not the one delaying signings or deciding budgets. That's a manager who's been given a broken set of tools and told to build a Champions League team with it. And yet he'll be the one in the firing line if we go out. That's the irony, isn't it? The board hides behind their spreadsheets, their business plans, their obsession with value. And meanwhile, Brendan is on the touchline trying to win games with a bench full of teenagers and backup options who aren't ready. It's cruel, really. And the worst part is that we've seen this before. We saw it with Lennon. We saw it even during Rodgers' first spell. Promises of ambition only to be let down by last-minute panic buys, or worse, nothing at all. And now, the same story again. You've got supporters watching rivals making big moves in the market, building properly, investing with intent, and Celtic, still haggling over a left winger, still chasing a striker, still monitoring players when we need starters. And all the while the clock ticks down, and the qualifying rounds don't wait. Let's not forget, we've been talking about this summer window since February. We knew who was leaving. We knew what areas needed strengthening. We had money in the bank. And yet here we are, days before the second leg, still plugging gaps and improvising in crucial areas of the pitch. No manager should be working under those conditions. And yet Brendan tries. He keeps the public face calm, but you can see the quiet frustration. The subtle digs. His insistence on working with the players available isn't humility, it's survival. He knows he can't come out swinging at the board. Not yet, but you better believe he's keeping receipts. And if we go out, there's going to be some tough conversations. Because make no mistake, going out would be a disaster. Financially, yes, but also for morale, for the dressing room, for the supporters. The Champions League brings prestige, it brings excitement, and it brings a level of competition that Celtic should be part of every single year. Dropping to the Europa League, even with its own merits, would feel like failure. Not because it's a bad tournament, but because we've made it the consolation prize. And let's talk about Kai for a second. Because this isn't some European heavyweight we're facing. This isn't a club with a deep pedigree or a squad full of superstars. But what they do have is organization. They've got discipline. They've got a game plan. And crucially, they've got belief. And right now, that belief might just be stronger than ours. In Almaty, they're going to be up for it. That stadium is going to be bouncing. They know they're 90 minutes from history. Biggest night in their club's life. And they'll smell blood. They'll know Celtic are fragile, stretched, lacking confidence. And if they start fast, if they press us the way they did in the first half at Parkhead, this tie could unravel quickly. But here's the thing, it's still in our hands. We have the better players, the bigger club, the greater experience. But that only matters if we show it. If we come out with intensity, press high, play quickly, and, most importantly, take our chances. If we do that, we win. If we don't, well, we're looking at a long and painful European campaign. And we can't afford that. Not with the league race heating up. Not with the pressure already building. Not when you've got players like Callum McGregor doing everything they can to hold this group together. He came out after the match and called for unity. And that's admirable. But the truth is, unity comes from the top. It comes from leadership. And right now, Celtic's leadership is invisible. Where is the voice from the boardroom? Where is the sporting director? Where's the sense that someone is actually steering this ship? Because all we see is silence. And in that silence, chaos grows. Confusion grows. Players lose confidence. Managers lose belief. Fans lose patience. And, speaking of patience, the fans were brilliant last night. Stayed with the team, tried to lift them. But by the end, you could feel the tension, the murmurs, the frustration. And rightly so. These are supporters who have backed the club through thick and thin, who fill the stadium every week, who buy the kits, the season tickets, the European packages. And what are they getting back? A team that looks unprepared, uninspired, and out of ideas. And now the pressure is enormous. Not just on Brendan, but on the players who've been handed the shirt. Guys like Maeda, who is just completely out of form. Ida, who doesn't look ready. Young, who isn't impacting games. And on the flip side, players like McGregor and Tierney, who are trying to carry the load, but can't do it all alone. It's not fair on them. It's not fair on any of them, really. Because you can't ask a team to play like champions when you haven't equipped them to be champions. You can't ask Brendan Rodgers to deliver Champions League football when you've handed him a Europa League squad. And yet here we are. The second leg will define the early narrative of this season. Win, and there's a reprieve. A chance to regroup, maybe even push on if we get the signings done. Lose, and the fallout is going to be huge. Not just emotionally, but structurally. Because if this board thinks the fans are upset now, wait until we're playing Thursday nights in front of half-full stadiums, trying to lift ourselves from matches we shouldn't be in. And look, we're still Celtic. There's always hope. We've seen magic before. Nights in Europe that defy logic. Players stepping up when it matters most. Maybe this is one of those times. Maybe Brendan pulls something out of the bag. Maybe the players find that extra gear. That's what we have to believe. But if that doesn't happen, if this ends the way it's threatening to end, then it can't just be another oh well moment. There needs to be a reckoning. Because this isn't just a one-off. It's a pattern. A rot that's been allowed to spread. And it has to stop. Either we start acting like a Champions League club, or we accept that we've become something smaller. And if we accept that, if we settle, then we'll never get back to where we should be. The players deserve more. Brendan deserves more. And above all, the fans deserve more. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Celtic Park has always been a stage where whispers grow into echoes. And right now the sound carrying through the green side of Glasgow is the name of Denis Munteanu, the Romanian forward who, according to talk coming from both Bucharest and Lennoxtown, is on the verge of donning the famous green and white hoops. Supporters filtering out of pubs around Gallowgate last night were already buzzing with speculation that the 22-year-old attacker had been spotted arriving in the city, some swearing blind that they saw a car with Romanian plates pulling up near the training ground. While no official confirmation has come from Parkhead, the very nature of the rumor has lit a spark among the faithful, who have been crying out for a new striking option to replace the inconsistent finishing seen too often this season. The press in Romania have hinted that the deal is all but signed, and with Celtic scouts reportedly impressed after several months of quiet monitoring. It feels as though this story has too much smoke not to carry fire. The buzz is infectious, the city talking about little else. The possibility of a new hero stepping onto the pitch where so many legends have walked. What makes the chatter even louder is the profile of Munteanu himself, a player whose rise has been rapid and whose potential seems far from fulfilled. Known for his pace and ability to drift between defensive lines, he has caught the eye in Romania's top flight, scoring crucial goals that belied his years. Celtic fans love a forward who can play with flair, and the stories being swapped over pints in Merchant City paint him as precisely that sort of talent. The comparisons have been varied, some likening him to a young Henrik Larsson for his intelligent movement, while others suggest he could follow the unpredictable path of Giorgio Samaras, sometimes maddening but often magical. Regardless of which vision proves closer to reality, the idea of him stepping into the cauldron of Celtic Park with 60,000 voices rising in anticipation, is more than enough to stoke excitement. Even rival supporters have been drawn into the conversation, suggesting Celtic are plotting something bold, a move that could tilt the balance of power in Scottish football just as the season enters a decisive stretch. The timing of this rumor could not be more intriguing, for Celtic's campaign has been balanced on a knife edge, their dominance in the league tested and the demand for European respectability higher than ever. The thought that the club might invest in a young striker from Eastern Europe speaks to both strategy and ambition, recognizing that freshness and unpredictability are necessary if they are to stretch defenses both at home and abroad. The Celtic board, often accused of caution in the market, appear, if the whispers prove true, to have acted decisively this time, stealing a march on competitors who had also been monitoring the Romanian starlet. Fans on message boards and radio phone-ins are already debating how he might slot into the current setup, whether alongside the main striker in a two-man partnership or as a roaming forward capable of unsettling rigid Scottish backlines. What remains undeniable is the growing belief that something big is stirring behind the scenes, the type of calculated risk that has, in the past, delivered icons to Celtic folklore. The possibilities are tantalizing, and anticipation is turning into impatience as the city awaits official word. Behind closed doors, whispers of the contract itself have begun to circulate, feeding the hunger for detail. It is said that Munteanu's representatives have been in discussions not just about salary and playing time, but about the club's long-term vision, including their intent to compete fiercely in Europe rather than merely making up the numbers. Some insiders claim that Celtic's hierarchy promised him a clear development plan, a chance to evolve in Glasgow, while being nurtured into a talismanic figure, rather than just another squad player. This approach has apparently appealed to the player, who sees the Scottish Premiership as a launchpad rather than a limit. Fans know well that Celtic's best recruits often come from outside the biggest markets, players who arrive underestimated and leave adored, and the hope is that Munteanu fits this mold. Meanwhile, snippets of information have suggested that the deal could include performance-based clauses, another sign that Celtic are mindful of balancing risk with potential reward. Whether those rumors hold truth is almost beside the point, for the discussion itself fuels the mystique, heightening the drama and keeping the green and white half of the city on the edge of revelation. Now the question becomes not whether the deal exists, but when it will be unveiled, for the sense in Glasgow is that the curtain is about to rise on the club's newest act. In cafes, pubs, and workplaces, the buzz has reached fever pitch, with supporters eager to see if Munteanu can shoulder the weight of expectations that comes with the Celtic jersey. Some warn that too much pressure on young shoulders can be dangerous, pointing to past recruits who faltered under the spotlight. Yet others counter that great players thrive when placed on stages worthy of their talent. As the green tide of optimism swells, it is easy to forget that nothing official has been confirmed, but such is the nature of footballing rumor. The idea often matters almost as much as the fact. Celtic's history is rich with arrivals who came quietly and left as legends. And perhaps, just perhaps, this Romanian forward is destined to write a new chapter in that story. Until the announcement arrives, however, the city will continue to buzz, the faithful will continue to dream, and the rumor will continue to grow, carrying with it the possibility of another hero for paradise. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.